Have you ever wondered why certain men seem to hold a power that bends the air around them, as if the room itself submits when they walk in? Picture a throne carved from stone, cold and immovable, yet marked by cracks hidden beneath the surface. This throne is the symbol of male power, a construct older than memory, but inside its weight lies fragility. Power in its rawest form is not brute strength, but a spell woven through silence, control, and the unspoken demand that others orbit around it. Women encounter this throne in countless forms, through fathers, lovers, leaders, or strangers whose gaze lingers too long. It does not merely command, it seeks to shape your sense of self. The Jungian shadow explains this throne's allure. A man who grasps for control does not simply hold authority over you, he wages war against his own inner chaos. His dominance is often a mask, the polished armor worn to conceal wounds he cannot bear to face. When you stand before such a man, what you feel is not just his presence but the echo of his unfinished battles. His silence may feel like mystery, his rules like stability, but beneath it pulses the fear of collapse. And still, many women step into this dance, captivated by the promise of protection, blind to the price of surrender. There is a mythic pull in this exchange. It is as if you are drawn toward the figure of the high priestess, the archetype that whispers both temptation and truth. She does not kneel to the throne, nor does she rage against it. She sees through it. Her gift is the ability to discern shadow from essence, illusion from reality. To embody her is to notice the flicker behind the mask, the way his demand for control is less about you and more about his terror of being unmasked. Yet this awareness does not come easily. It requires that you look at the throne not as a source of protection, but as a mirror of unhealed fractures. Every woman who has felt the sting of being silenced knows the subtle violence of male power. It does not always arrive with shouting or fists. Often it comes wrapped in calm authority, in the sentence, "This is for your own good," or in the unspoken rule that your needs are secondary. Control wears many disguises. It can be the gentle hand on your back guiding you toward choices you never made. It can be the conversation where your words vanish because his logic is sharper. You begin to doubt yourself, not because you lack clarity, but because you are standing inside his constructed kingdom, where his reality becomes the law. And yet there is a paradox hidden here. What seems like his absolute control is also a cage that confines him. Jung taught that what a man suppresses in himself he projects outward. His command over you is not about you at all. It is the desperate attempt to silence his inner feminine, his anima, the part of him he cannot acknowledge. By controlling the woman before him, he avoids meeting the woman within him. The throne he sits upon is not power, it is fear given form. To see this clearly is to reclaim something sacred, because once you stop mistaking his mask for truth, you begin to awaken your own. The high priestess does not dismantle the throne through battle. She withdraws her energy, her validation, her compliance. Each time you choose to speak when silence is expected, each time you walk away instead of folding into his story, you chip at the illusion. This is the first micro-action, a quiet refusal that requires no announcement. You do not need to convince him, nor prove yourself. You only need to recognize that the throne was never built for you to sit upon. It was constructed to keep you beneath it. Imagine holding a cracked mirror in your hands. The reflection is distorted, but it still shows a truth he does not want revealed, the fractures in his power. The crack is not your weakness, but his. And if you stare long enough, you realize the mirror was never about him. It was always showing you where you have given away your gaze. Power shifts the moment you reclaim your sight. But what happens when you dare to shatter the mirror completely, when you no longer play by the laws of his kingdom? The throne grows heavier when a man senses his grip weakening. He tightens the rules, sharpens the silence, and deepens the air of inevitability. It is here that many women feel trapped, mistaking his rigidity for stability. Yet the high priestess archetype whispers differently. Stability born of control is not solidity but petrification. It is a castle that looks imposing from the outside, but inside carries hollow chambers echoing with fear. To live within it is to feel safe for a season, yet restless in the marrow of your being, as though your soul knows it is slowly suffocating. Jung would say the psyche pushes toward wholeness, even if it means tearing down the walls of the castle that once kept you safe. This tearing often begins with discomfort, the small gnawing sensation that his certainty no longer feels protective but oppressive. The shadow shows itself in these moments. His need to dominate reveals not strength but an avoidance of weakness, not courage but fear disguised as authority. The high priestess learns to see this without hatred, without even judgment, but with clarity. She knows that if she internalizes his rules as truth, she becomes a prisoner in someone else's unfinished battle. You can sense this pattern in subtle ways. Notice how often his language frames choice as inevitability. You should, you must, that's just how it is. These phrases are not neutral, they are the architecture of his throne. Each time you accept them without question, you lend bricks to the construction of a fortress that cages both of you. The micro-action here is deceptively simple. Pause before answering. Breathe into the silence where his command waits to be obeyed. Ask yourself, is this my truth or his projection? That single question can unravel chains thicker than iron. Archetypes move through relationships like tides. A man clinging to power embodies the king-turned-tyrant, a ruler whose fear of irrelevance drives him to demand loyalty rather than inspire it. To stand against him is not to challenge him directly but to embody the high priestess's deeper current. She does not shout, she observes. She does not kneel, she knows. This knowing becomes her shield, for when she refuses to participate in the illusion, the throne itself trembles. His control requires your participation. Your withdrawal reveals the hollowness beneath. Consider the forgotten key lying on the floor of that castle. It is small, overlooked, dismissed as insignificant, yet it opens the door to the one chamber he cannot control, your inner sovereignty. This key is the practice of discernment. Each time you question the script he hands you, each time you choose your voice over silence, you place your hand upon the key. You begin to remember that freedom does not come from changing his throne, but from stepping outside of its boundaries entirely. There is, however, a danger in this awakening. Many women, upon sensing the cracks, swing into rebellion fueled by anger. The temptation is to destroy the throne with fire, to meet control with defiance. But the high priestess understands that fury can still bind you to his story. Every battle fought against him is still fought on his stage. True liberation is quieter, subtler, more radical. It is the refusal to engage in the performance at all. This does not mean silence. It means speaking from a place that does not seek his approval, nor his downfall. It means stepping into a realm where your worth is not negotiable. The psyche resists at first, for the familiar cage is safer than the vast unknown. To step out requires faith in your own unseen ground. You may feel the pull of guilt, the whisper that leaving his rule is betrayal. But guilt, too, is part of the architecture. It is the lock that keeps the door closed. Remember the key. It waits, unassuming yet powerful, to remind you that you were never bound by the throne except in belief. The high priestess archetype teaches that control is an illusion maintained only as long as you give it power. Once you see through it, the spell breaks. And yet, a question lingers, a whisper that hovers at the edge of every woman's awakening. If the throne collapses, what rises in its place? When the throne begins to crumble, the man who clung to it often reveals his deepest fear. He does not fear your disobedience as much as he fears the emptiness of himself once your reflection no longer feeds him. His power thrived in your compliance. in the way you mirrored back to him the strength he wished he possessed. Without it, he faces a silence more terrifying than any challenge you could pose. This is the silence of his unintegrated anima, the inner feminine he has suppressed for years. He sees her not in himself, but in you, and when you refuse to play the role, the illusion collapses. The high priestess archetype thrives in these moments of collapse. She does not gloat in victory because she understands there was never truly a battle. What dissolves here is not a man's worth but his mask. And in this dissolution you are offered something precious, the sight of what lies beneath the armor. It may be raw, broken, even cruel, but it is real. To see reality clearly is liberation because illusions bind while truth frees. Yet this freedom is not given, it is claimed. You claim it each time you choose perception over projection. Each time you trust the truth of what you feel instead of the narrative you are handed. This claiming of freedom is not loud. It is often quiet, like the breath you take when you decide not to answer his provocation, like the stillness when you refuse to justify yourself against accusations born of his fear. Power returns to you not in thunder but in the subtle reclaiming of your gaze. You look at him and see not a king, not protector, not a tyrant, but a man caught in the web of his own shadow. And in that moment, you realize you no longer need to kneel, nor to rage. You only need to step aside and let him wrestle his reflection. Jung taught that individuation, the journey toward wholeness, demands confrontation with shadow. For a woman entangled with a controlling man, the shadow is not only his but also hers. It is the part that longs for certainty, for the illusion of safety, for the relief of someone else making the choices. To embody the high priestess is to meet this shadow without shame, to say, yes, I wanted protection. Yes, I feared my own sovereignty. Only then can you step into a fuller form of yourself, one that no longer bargains with chains disguised as love. The forgotten key reappears here, almost glowing in the dust. You bend down and notice it was never locked away, never hidden from you. It was always near, waiting for your hand. The act of reaching for it is itself a declaration. You choose to walk into uncertainty rather than remain confined in predictable control. This is not a rejection of men but a reclamation of yourself. You become the guardian of your own inner temple, a place where no throne dictates your worth. Microactions matter in this reclamation. Each time you practice saying no without justification, you turn the key a little further. Each time you allow yourself to feel anger without drowning in it, you unlock another chamber of your sovereignty. Each time you sit in solitude and listen to the voice within rather than the commands without, you step further through the door. These are not small acts. They are sacred rituals, each one dismantling the belief that you must be shaped by someone else's rule. Yet the moment the door opens, a question emerges that rattles the very bones. If you no longer define yourself by the throne, who are you? Freedom is both exhilarating and terrifying because it strips away the old script without immediately offering a new one. This is the abyss where many women hesitate, lingering at the threshold, tempted to turn back. For the unknown feels vast, and the cage, at least, is familiar. But the high priestess does not turn back. She trusts the void, for she knows that only in walking through it can she discover the temple that has always awaited within. The cracked mirror glimmers once more. This time the fracture spreads, threatening to break the image entirely. You see yourself reflected, but not as a woman bound or resisting. You see a woman standing alone, luminous in her sovereignty, with no need for the throne at all. Yet the mirror has not yet shattered and the question lingers. What happens when you dare to break it fully, to step into a reality where no man's power defines you? The cracked mirror stands before you, fragile yet persistent, showing both what was and what waits to be born. Men who cling to power will try to keep the mirror intact, for it sustains the illusion that you need them to reflect your worth. But the high priestess senses the truth. The mirror was never designed to reveal your essence, only to distort it so you would not see yourself clearly. Each crack is a prophecy, a sign that the reflection is breaking down, not to destroy you, but to liberate you from dependency on his gaze. A man bound to control cannot bear this breaking. He feels his power slipping when you look at him without fear. He senses his reign ending when you no longer bend your rhythm to his demands. Some will attempt to tighten their grip, to reclaim authority through manipulation, guilt, or even tenderness meant to bind. Yet the high priestess knows that what he offers is not love, but bargaining. Love does not require submission. Love does not demand that you lose yourself to preserve his illusion. To accept this bargain is to become the servant of his shadow. To refuse is to become the keeper of your soul. Here, the archetypal battle becomes unmistakable. He is the tyrant king, clinging to a throne carved from fear. You are the high priestess, holding the forgotten key and deciding whether to step beyond the fortress. The choice is not easy, for leaving does not simply mean walking away from him. It means walking away from the parts of yourself that found comfort in captivity. The cage can become seductive when it shields you from uncertainty. But sovereignty always demands risk, the risk of not knowing what waits when you unlock the door. Jungian individuation is not about rejecting the masculine, but about integrating what was split. To face male control is also to face the anima within him and the shadow within you. His failure to meet his inner feminine mirrors your own hesitation to embrace your inner authority. In this mirroring lies the secret. The very thing you believed he stole was never his to give or take. It was always yours, buried beneath layers of projection and silence. The cracked mirror does not just show his fear, it reveals her hidden strength, waiting for recognition. There is a sacred micro-action in this recognition. Stand before the mirror and name aloud what you see that belongs to you. Say, "This voice is mine, this body is mine, this choice is mine." Simple words, yet revolutionary because they fracture the spell of dependency. You no longer ask the throne for permission. You no longer wait for his validation. You claim what has always been yours. And in that act, the mirror trembles closer to shattering. But the moment before it breaks can be the most dangerous. Men who sense your awakening may offer their deepest charm here. They may suddenly soften, speaking of love, of need, of shared destiny. They may paint pictures of a future together that bind you once more to their throne. This is the final test, for the temptation is strong to mistake their need for devotion. But devotion born of fear is not love. It is chains disguised as roses. The high priestess does not hate these roses, but she refuses to weave them into her crown. And so you stand, the mirror before you, the key in your hand, the throne behind you. The question that rises is no longer about him, but about you. Will you allow the fractured reflection to hold you captive, or will you let it fall away entirely, even if it means stepping into the unknown? The abyss waits, vast and uncharted, but within it lies the temple of your truest self. What would it mean if the mirror shattered tonight, and you never again sought your worth in the eyes of control? The mirror shatters. The sound is not loud, not dramatic, but sharp and final, like the breaking of a spell that had bound you for far too long. Shards fall around your feet, glittering with fragments of the woman you were told to be, the compliant one, the dependent one, the reflection of his fear. They no longer hold power over you. The throne, once imposing, now seems smaller, almost pathetic without the mirror to magnify its illusion. The tyrant king sits upon it, clutching his crown, but you see clearly now. He is only a man, stripped of the myth you once believed. The high priestess archetype rises within you at this moment, not as an external role to perform, but as the essence of your own sovereignty. She is not defined by rebellion, nor by submission, but by seeing. She walks away from the broken mirror without looking back, because she understands that truth, once revealed, cannot be unseen. There is no return to blindness, no comfort in illusions once they have shattered. What remains is raw, uncertain, but undeniably yours. This is the space Jung described as the individuation process, the painful, necessary separation from projections that once dictated your reality. You no longer see men as gods or tyrants, but as humans wrestling with their own shadows. You no longer see yourself as victim or savior, but as a sovereign presence in her own right. In this clarity, you are free, not because he released you, but because you stopped handing him the chains. The forgotten key glows in your hand as you step through the door that was always waiting. Beyond it lies no throne, no cage, no mirror, only open ground. At first, the openness feels terrifying. Without his rules, who are you? Without his control, where do you place your feet? Yet slowly, you notice the ground responds to your steps. Each choice carves a path. Each breath becomes permission to exist without justification. Freedom is not a gift. It is a practice, one you commit to every time you trust yourself over external command. Here lies the micro-action that transforms everything. Speak your truth without calculating its effect on him. Say what you know is real, even if it displeases, even if it disrupts. Not with anger, not with explanation, simply with clarity. Each time you do this, you walk further from the ruins of the throne and deeper into the temple of your own being. The high priestess thrives in this temple, for it is built not from control but from awareness, not from dominance but from inner alignment. The tyrant king may call after you, pleading or threatening, but his voice no longer defines your world. You hear it as the echo of his own unhealed wounds, the cry of a man who has yet to meet his anima. He is no longer your mirror, no longer your cage. He is a figure in the distance, fading as you walk further into sovereignty. The power he once held dissolves like mist in sunlight, because you see it now for what it always was: projection, illusion, a performance you no longer attend. And so the question shifts. It is no longer, how do I resist his control? It becomes, what will I create in the space where control once lived? This is the true gift of individuation, not merely freedom from chains, but the power to shape your own life from a place of wholeness. The temple within you waits, walls made of silence that protects, pillars carved from choices that are truly yours. The high priestess stands there, radiant not as a separate figure, but as your own reflection finally seen without distortion. Now, standing in that temple, a whisper rises in your chest. It asks not about him, but about you. If no man's power defines you, if no throne commands you, if no mirror dictates you, then who will you dare to become? In the stillness of the temple, you realize the silence is not empty at all. It hums with possibility, alive with echoes of every choice you were once too afraid to make. The high priestess walks with you here, not as a guide separate from yourself, but as the part of you that always knew. She places no crown on your head, no title in your hand, for sovereignty does not need ornament. It lives in the marrow, in the calm certainty that you belong to yourself. The men who once sat upon thrones will still exist in the world. They will still cloak fear in dominance, still disguise their broken anima as authority over women, but their presence no longer commands your surrender. You meet them as equals, seeing through their masks without becoming entangled in their battles. You do not hate them, nor do you need to save them. Their shadow is theirs to meet. Your task is different, to embody the clarity that refuses to be reduced to reflection. Freedom does not roar like a revolution. It settles like dawn. At first it is soft, a faint light across the horizon of your life. Then it grows, illuminating spaces you forgot were yours. The conversation where you once silenced yourself becomes a place where your voice rises steady and calm. The relationship where you once diminished your needs becomes a space where you ask directly, without apology. The choices you once postponed until someone else approved are now taken with confidence, because the only permission that matters is your own. This is individuation in its lived form. Jung spoke of it as integration, but for you it feels like homecoming. You no longer exile parts of yourself to fit into someone else's fortress. The feminine and the shadow, the longing and the anger, the tenderness and the fire, all return to you. They weave together into a presence that is whole, not perfect, but complete. From this place, you do not need to chase power nor fear its loss. You have become the source. The cracked mirror lies in pieces behind you, and yet, as you glance back, you understand its final gift. Every shard reflects not distortion now, but fragments of your journey. The silence you endured, the illusions you shattered, the truths you claimed. You do not gather them, for you no longer need them to see yourself. But you honor them because they remind you of the path you walked. Even the broken glass becomes sacred when it marks the threshold of transformation. There is one final micro-action to root this freedom. Each time you feel the temptation to measure your worth by how a man responds, pause. Place your hand upon your heart and ask, what is true for me in this moment? Let the answer guide you, even if it disrupts, even if it disappoints. This act may seem small, but it is the practice of sovereignty in motion. Over time, it carves a new rhythm into your life, a rhythm no throne can command. And now, the red thread that began with the cracked mirror and the forgotten key comes full circle. The mirror has shattered and the key has opened the door. You stand not as a woman defined by control, but as one who has claimed her own ground. The temple is no longer a metaphor. It is the way you live, the choices you make, the energy you embody. No man can take it, no throne can contain it, no mirror can distort it. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses. Share the moment you felt most empowered in the comments below.